Namaskar and welcome to this unique program to commemorate the start of celebrations for India's 75th Independence Year, Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav. On behalf of Prasiddha Foundation, the host, I, Vinita Bhatia, will be your anchor for this very special program, specially curated for India 75, titled BAPU in Our Times. The vision of Gandhiji's leadership on self-reliance, social harmony, and equitable society, ecology, environment, religion, and philosophy, and striving for a socially awakened and a just society are some of the ideas and political realities that will be deliberated upon by our esteemed panel comprising political thinkers, scholars, and Gandhian philosophers. Before I go on to welcome our esteemed speakers, I would also like to make a mention that this is initiative of Prasiddha Foundation, and the founder is none other than Srimati Pratibha Praladji, who is the founder of Prasiddha Foundation, which was established in the year 1990 with the purpose of fostering love and appreciation for all forms of art and to work through the medium of art for the promotion of national and international cultural contact. Many high-profile festivals have been organized by the Prasiddha Foundation and today are considered among the best administered platforms of art in the country, promotion, propagation, and preservation in the field of art that have motivated the Prasiddha Foundation to constantly readdress the arts and redesign festivals towards sensitizing and enlarging the mass base of cultural consumers. Of course, Pratibha ji is also a Padma Shri awardee, and we heartily welcome her. Pratibha ji, welcome. Moving on, we also like to introduce our esteemed speakers, Dr. Shobhana Radhakrishna, who is an acclaimed proponent of Gandhian philosophy. Welcome, Shobhana ji. Dr. Rajiv Bora, who of course today is not present here currently, but is also a priest proponent. We also have amongst us Dr. Alok Bajpai, one of the topmost consultants in psychiatry in India. Welcome, Dr. Alok Bajpai.
Namaskar.
And I do have a deep-root connection with you from Kanpur, which I will share with you later.
Sure.
Also like to welcome our other esteemed panelist, Dr. Sudarshan Iyengar, who is currently at the Action Research in Community Health and Development. Welcome, Dr. Sudarshan Iyengar ji. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
And last but not the least, we are also very lucky to have with us today Dr. Sachidanand Joshi ji, who is also the member secretary of IGNCA, that is Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts. Namaskaram and welcome.
Namaste. Namaste. And I am really happy to be here now. Thank you.
Thank you and a warm welcome to all of you. So without much further ado, we will straight away move to our first speaker for the evening, which is Dr. Shobhana Radhakrishnan ji. Before that, I would like to introduce her. Dr. Shobhana Radhakrishnan ji is an internationally acclaimed speaker on the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. She has chalked out a novel way of spreading Gandhian ideology by holding Gandhi Katha based on the popularity of the Indian oral tradition nationally and internationally. Brought up in Mahatma Gandhi Sevagram Ashram in Wardha, Radhakrishna ji has cultivated a strong ideological connect with Gandhiji's ideals since childhood. She has established many organizations to work for Sarvodaya, Gram Swaraj, and constructive programs inspired by the vision of Mahatma Gandhi. She is the chief functionary of the Gandhian Forum for Ethical Corporate Governance, formed under the aegis of the Standing Conference of Public Enterprise for promoting ethical business practices and organizational integrity in the public sector enterprises and have given 278 talks in 39 major PSCs in India. She has regularly addressed the young probationary officers of the Indian Civil Services in the apex training academies of Government of India. She has over 40 years of experience in social work in developmental projects in different parts of India. Her background of Gandhian constructive work for the development and welfare of the underprivileged communities has led her to dedicate her life to the cause of serving the poor. On the UN International Day of Non-Violence, which is the 2nd of October, she has given the keynote address at the UN office, Bangkok in 2014, in the Peace Palace. In 2017, in the King Faisal Center, and Riyadh in 2018 in the US office, and in Vienna in 2019 and UN office, and Nairobi in 2020, organized by the Indian missions in the respective countries. As a part of the 150th birth anniversary celebrations of Mahatma Gandhi from September 2018 to December 2020, she has delivered 267 lectures and Gandhi Katha in 135 countries with support from respective Indian missions and facilitated by the Ministry of External Affairs and Ministry of Culture, Government of India. Since 2019, she has presented the Gandhi Katha at the Rashtrapati Niwas, various Raj Bhavans and Raj Nivas and the Apex Cultural Institutes in India. The Katha format is ingrained in the Indian culture and it conveys the messages by way of storytelling with narration and music. Her Gandhi Katha and lectures on Mahatma Gandhi's vision and its relevance attempt to provide simple principles, ideas, and alternatives to help address pressing social, communal, and ecological challenges of our time. These lessons, gleaned with Mahatma Gandhi's life, over us invaluable advice on leading an enlightened, more meaningful, self-aware, socially responsible, and saner life. On 30th of January 2021, which is this year itself, Indian embassies and the high commissions in 84 countries had actually hosted and given a tribute. A tribute was given by Dr. Shobna Radhakrishna to pay homage to Mahatma Gandhi on his 73rd Martyrs Day. She is conducting online courses on Gandhian philosophy hosted by 78 Indian missions as part of India at 75 celebrations, supported by the ICCR and MEA. Government of India Committee has honored her with several recognitions and awards. The Ministry of Rural Development, Government of India recognized her as eminent citizen from 2010 to the 2013. She is also the trustee of Lal Bahadur Shastri National Memorial Trust, advisor of National Coalition for Education India, and the member of International Association of Studies in the Mediterranean and the East in Rome, Italy. She was former chairperson of Gandhi Peace Center, New Delhi. She is the advisor of Gandhipedia, a social media platform of Ministry of Culture, Government of India, jointly implemented by IIT Kharagpur, IIT Gandhinagar, and National Council of Science Museums. And there is much more to her, but I will stop here and I have to take a breather. So over to the very eminent Dr. Shobna Radhakrishnan ji. We would love to hear from you.
Namaskar. I thank the Prasiddha Foundation for hosting this online colloquium on BAPU in Our Times and inviting me as one of the speakers. I extend my greetings to all the other esteemed speakers, and I'm very happy to be here today. Today we see that we have become a society madly chasing wealth and exploring the common resources for satisfying our greed. Gandhiji is a call from behind. He urges us to enjoy a simple and satisfying life by taking care of ourselves, others, and the nature. Gandhiji's antidote for those of us tired of chasing luxuries and living a life of unhappiness is to adopt a simple and minimalist life. Can we find the will to turn back from our insatiable greediness and follow him to simple and content life? That is the question. As a minimalist, Gandhiji refrained from overindulging in anything. He maintained that non-attachment to material things is a total necessity to live a simple and full life. Nothing could bring him into doing something that he didn't have full faith in. Gandhiji's simplicity was not limited to his appearance and possessions. He created self-sustaining community in the ashrams, which was a life of self-control, voluntary poverty, bread labor, and sarvodaya. All the basic needs from food to clothing and education were available there. Everyone in the ashrams, including Gandhiji, engaged in working in the press, in the farming, weaving and cleaning department and lead a minimalist life. I'm happy to inform you that I was born in Gandhiji's last ashram in Sevagram, Wardha in Maharashtra. My father was inspired by Gandhiji since his childhood and joined the non-violent freedom struggle, and my parents lived in the Sevagram ashram. Even after Gandhiji passed on in 1948, for more than 5 decades, my parents and all of us have continued to walk on the path that Gandhiji has shown to humanity, doing Gandhi Karya. Gandhiji's ashrams are a mingling of political and spiritual aims. It was a practical laboratory for transforming ordinary men and women into extraordinary seekers and satyagrahis, for offering the highest sacrifice in the freedom struggle on one hand, and to get involved in constructive programs to serve the poorest of the poor, to establish their self-respect and dignity on the other hand. His ashrams were his ideals of a non-violent face-to-face society for Sarvodaya, Swavalamban, Seva, and Gram Swaraj. The life and thoughts of Mahatma Gandhi are intertwined and inseparable. His politics was imbued with his spiritual experiments, and his spirituality was tempered by his vision of a non-violent society. His constructive program was integral to his politics. The unique practices of Gandhiji, his control of palate, his fasts, his spinning, his silence, and his prayers gave him the internal strength. They were as much a part of his politics as of his spiritual life. These practices and experiments were sustained and nurtured by the inmates of the ashrams that he had founded. The ashram community, through its own practices, affirmed, modified, and validated Gandhiji's ideals and practices, and continues to do so even till today. This shows the relevance of his practices. Gandhiji used to begin and end his day with prayers. These were prayers from all the religions of the world, Sarva Dharma Prarthana. Gandhiji's internal core comprised of the essence of all the religions, one that he had acquired from long study and reflection. He said that ultimately all the religions point to the same truth of compassion, love, forgiveness, and tolerance, and that everyone must study the essence of all the religions in an attitude of perfect reverence and have friendship and respect for the practitioners of different religions and diverse cultures. In this direction, the prayers from all the religions was the first step towards cultivating interfaith understanding. In the ashram in my childhood, the day used to begin at 5 a.m. as we set out for the Sarva Dharma Prarthana in the Prarthana Bhumi, situated next to the Bapu Kuti, and the evening prayers used to take place at 6 p.m. Though for the children like me, it was a fun thing, but it has made a strong imprint in my life as I continue to do so even till today. It gives me the internal strength and calmness. In all the ashrams established by Bapuji, the routine used to be very busy, and it was a productive life from early in the morning to 9 p.m. at night. Ashram life was a life of voluntary self-control, punctuality, discipline, minimalistic living, living in harmony with nature, leading a life of selflessness, non-attachment and non-possession were absolute requirements, minimum use of resources, and being ever vigilant. It was a life of bread labor and using each and every moment in the service of humanity. The ashram community was very prompt and caring, and I want to just relate about eating frugal, simple, organically grown vegetarian food. One of the major activities that I recall in the ashram days was working in the fields to grow vegetables, millets, cereals, cotton, etc. Everyone had to put in 2 to 3 hours in the field, and the produce used to be utilized in the kitchen and in the other activities. A lot of pumpkin used to grow in Sevagram, and every day in the meals, kaddu sabzi was included, so much so that we, the children, started calling Sevagram as Kaddugram. There used to be 4 community activities in the ashram: community prayers, community cleaning, community eating, and community spinning. 1 hour in the morning was the time for community cleaning. Though the time is short, otherwise I would have narrated something very, very interesting. In the afternoon, it was time for community spinning. I learned to spin at the age of 5 and continue to do so till today. From picking the white cotton flowers from the field till the khadi cloth was woven was taught in the ashram. In the ashram, spinning used to be called Sutra Yajna and remained an important means for single-minded concentration. In my experience, spinning is the best means of practicing mindful meditation and positive thinking. Our family friend and the British Quaker, Sir Horace Alexander, lived briefly in both the ashrams, that is in Ahmedabad and Sevagram ashram in India, and observed that the ashram bell used to ring 56 times during the day. He said, and I quote, "Gandhi had wonderful courtesy and punctuality. I was to learn quickly that he was the slave of watch. He had more to do in every 24 hours than almost any other man. So he had learned how to pack the most into every minute. Yet he never gave the impression of being hurried and impatient." Gandhiji has given 3 gifts to humanity, and that is Satyagraha, about which a lot of people know many things; constructive programs, about which people know a lot, but not everything; and Ekadasha Vrata, or the 11 observances, which were a set of rules for the ashram inmates for spiritual progress and voluntary self-control. Their relevance is much more to our times, as much as they were during Gandhiji's time. Gandhiji's spiritual heir and disciple, Saint Vinoba Bhaviji, had put these 11 vows in the form of a verse, which we recited in the morning and evening prayers. And they are: Ahimsa Satyamasteya Brahmacharya Asangraha Sharira Shrama Aswada Sarvatra Bhayavarjana Sarva Dharma Samanatva Swadeshi Sparsha Bhavana Vinamra Vrata Nishtha Se Ye Ekadasha Sepya Hai. The principle at the root of Ekadasha Vrata was to do unto others what you do unto yourself. Gandhiji had realized that vows gave inner strength to those who observed them. The first 5 vratas, truth, non-violence, non-stealing, chastity, and non-possession, are known as Mahavratas in Vedic literature. Maharshi Patanjali called them Pancha Yama. They are acceptable in all the religions of the world in some form or the other. They have a place in the cardinal principles in Christianity. In Jaina literature, they are known as Pancha Maha Yamas, while in Buddhism they are known as Panchashila. Gandhiji had added 2 auxiliary vratas, Abhaya and Aswada, and 4 more were added based on the condition of India at that time. The Croatian-Austrian philosopher Ivan Illich had come to Sevagram ashram for a week in 1978, and he used to sit in the Bapu Kuti for a long time and said, and I quote, "This hut of Mahatma Gandhi demonstrates to the world how the dignity of the common man can be brought up. It is also a symbol of happiness which we can derive from practicing the principles of simplicity, service, and truthfulness." Today, the world is facing 3 kinds of crises globally. First is the COVID-19 pandemic, second is the long-drawn financial crisis, and the third one is the ecological crisis, which has impacted everyone. We must look for answers somewhere within ourselves by learning from the life of Gandhiji, who had said, "My life is my message." The lesson the current pandemic is teaching us is simple. When one member of the family falls sick, the entire family is affected. And soon the community is affected, the nation is affected, and then other communities in other nations in this globalized world. The well-being of one individual has an impact on people on the other side of the globe. This is true of every action of ours. What we eat, what we buy, what we think, and what we do has reverberations and repercussions on all life on earth. It is this anubandha, this interconnectedness that sustains all life on earth. We are all in this together as one human family. Whether we choose to see it or not, we have only one home, this planet Earth, our Mother Earth. Our ancient sages and seers have always looked upon us as Vishwamanava, global citizens and said that the world is one family, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Instead of reinventing a new lifestyle, we just must get inspired from the life of Mahatma Gandhi to make the necessary changes in thoughts, actions, and conduct for coping up physically, mentally, and spiritually during all kinds of crises that we have created. Though Gandhiji's role and contributions to the political arena are well known, what is less known are his contributions towards health and well-being. Gandhiji was a firm believer in the principle that a healthy mind keeps the body healthy, and he stressed the importance of healthy lifestyle and positive thinking. His interest in health, hygiene, nutrition, and diseases was as great as his interest in politics. He insisted that adopting preventive measures for diseases was better than treatment. He also said that it was important to focus on cleanliness, a controlled diet, and an exercise regimen, that it would be best to avoid overconsumption of medicines, especially those that were not required. He always believed that it was important to understand what caused diseases and then remove the very cause rather than falling ill again and again and then attempting to treat it with excessive medicines. His experiments with nature cure were all done in the ashrams, were always on himself, and he was essentially a man of science. He approached a problem in a scientific manner. Gandhiji's message to the world on the vital question of health and well-being is very important. To him, the study of this question was part of the service to God and his creation, which was his mission. Knowing to care summed up his life. His message was simple and easy to follow. It encouraged everyone to respect simplicity, voluntary self-control, reduce the wants, follow the tradition, cultural practices and values, the environmental credo, and practice nature cure for living in harmony with nature. He also said that in order for keeping physically, mentally, and spiritually healthy, we should have perfect understanding of our bodies, which is made up of the 5 elements that are found in nature. And that is what has been told by our ancient seers and sages. And these 5 elements are air, water, fire, earth, and space. For the wellness of our bodies, the balance and harmony between all these 5 elements is necessary. For Gandhiji, the outside universe was but a reflection of the inside universe. He repeated time and again that the universe is compressed in the atom. There is not one law for the atom and another for the universe. It was based on his actual spiritual experience that gave him the conviction that the moral principles have no meaning unless they can be made to serve as the guide of conduct in the daily affairs of man. He had written a book called Key to Health, and that he wrote in August 1942, in which he wrote that anyone who observes the rules of health mentioned in this book will find that he has got in it a real key to unlock the gates leading him to health. He will not need to knock at the doors of doctors or vaidyas from day to day. So Mahatma Gandhi comes across as the greatest healer and the greatest wellness guru for all times. The Gandhian principles of freedom from fear and care for all is a perfect prescription in the times of crisis. Gandhiji's emphasis on healthy lifestyle, empowerment for self-care, and care in the community would make perfect sense. So this is what I wanted to tell about Gandhiji, Bapuji's minimalist life, and what were his views on health and well-being. So I once again thank the organizers for having invited me to speak on this occasion, and I wish you all the success in your endeavor. And to all the esteemed participants, I convey my greetings again, and then to all of the people who have joined me online, namaskar.
Thank you, Shobna ji, so much. Thank you for sharing such intricate details from Gandhiji's life, and most importantly, the lesson of simplicity and value creation. I'm sure our audience will have a lot of takeaways from your speech to both think about and, more importantly, put into action. So thank you so much. We're truly honored and delighted that you could share all this on this platform. Thank you so much. We are truly honored to have you. Thank you once again. I would now like to invite our next panelist, which is Dr. Alok Bajpai. Before I do so, I would like to read a short bio and introduce Dr. Bajpai. Some of the words that describe him are physics, psychiatry, film, music, literature, and teaching. But they are only some of the things that occupy Dr. Alok Bajpai worldwide. Well, after his medical graduation, Dr. Alok trained in psychiatry at NIMHANS, Bangalore, the apex institute of mental health in India. He finished his DPM and MD between the 1990 and 1996, and then joined the Regency Hospital, Kanpur, as a senior consultant of psychiatry. Between 2003-04 and 2006 and 7, Dr. Alok worked as consultant psychiatric in Australia. Apart from practicing general psychiatry, a consistent focus of his work has been with child and adolescent mental health, and he has established a unique child and adolescent mental health center in Kanpur. He has been instrumental in putting together many awareness campaigns and workshops, especially with schools, and has trained teachers aiming at increasing sensitivity towards childhood problems in many Indian cities and states. Well, he conducts also workshops in Chennai, which include up to 300 children and parents from various strata of society, having been immensely popular. These range from life skills to managing technology for adolescents. The purpose of these interactions is to enhance positive mental health rather than focus on disease. Today, a decade of his work has slowly created an awareness of dyslexia and other childhood problems in our population. A consistent focus is on life skills, especially the process of critical thinking, as an attempt of brain training to help the young minds evolve and evaluate their own ideology. Also, he conducts the regular workshops in Kolkata with Mental Health Foundation. Some of these workshops, like Treat or Heal and the Art of Teaching, aim at psychologists and teachers to enhance their understanding of human psyche. Dr. Alok is a consultant psychiatrist to the IIT Kanpur students. He is also a co-mentor at USID eGurukul, organized by the IIT. He was also an invited member of the task force constituted by the Ministry of HRD for the prevention of suicide and promotion of mental well-being in the IITs and CFTIs. He is also a regular columnist who writes about issues of psychiatry and sexuality for gender readers. Another area of his interest is cinema. He did a short course in film at the FTII, Pune, and script writing workshops and appreciation course at Perth, Australia. He now runs the Film Society in Kanpur, attempting to expose the audience to alternative cinema. He also organizes short filmmaking contests with schools and film appreciation workshops for kids. The author is a modular workshop developed for an introduction to cinema for youth being done at schools and colleges. Cinema and Mind is an innovative workshop designed by him to help participants understand the deeper meaning of cinema. One special passion with Dr. Alok are the transformational processes of the mind to enhance inner harmony and peace, as Mahatma Gandhi remains his leitmotif and example. He regularly anchors a multimedia interactive program on Mahatma Gandhi for schools and colleges, especially to introduce and provoke children, youth, and adults to think and rediscover Gandhi's message of nonviolence. This program called An Hour with the Mahatma was done with more than 4,000 students from school till postdoctorate levels at over 60 schools all over India. This has expanded to life skills workshop and provides a platform to the people to learn, discuss, and progress. Gandhi for him is a tool to improve life skills, and his exploration continues in applying Gandhi's tools to various walks of life, especially conflict resolution and compassion. These sessions have been done at NIMHANS, Indian Law School, literary festivals, various other celebrated intellectual forums as Canvas Askew, Habitat Center, Delhi. Treat or Heal was one such workshop done for psychology students of Calcutta University to introduce them to the positive life skills required as a therapist. His understanding of Gita has resulted in popular workshops, What Krishna Meant and Human Investment, Mahabharata lessons given in the Air Force stations, UP, Thai, and in France. Lectures and workshops on various other forums intend to promote harmony. Dr. Alok also runs an informal group called Chopal, which regularly meets and has brainstorming sessions on arts, literature, and poetry. Faiz, Ghalib, and Kabir is regularly discussed in these sessions. His participation in seminars or on partitions and writings like that of Manto is in keeping with his search for harmony. Oh my God. Dr. Alok, it's truly an honor to introduce you, and definitely I must say you are a man of many talents. So happy to have you on the forum.
Thank you, Vinita. And thank you, Pratibha ji. Thank you, Joshi ji. Can I pitch in Hindi words also? No problem? Okay, wonderful. Gandhi ji की बात करने से पहले अपनी तारीफ सुनना is like, putting a noose around your neck and tying it. So I'm slightly ashamed of it, but nevertheless. Shobhana ji had already set the stage, but let me just, because there's a limited time, let me just pick up the real point. When we say BAPU in our times, it's a slightly better version of asking whether Gandhi is relevant. Of course he's relevant, because if he's not relevant, we wouldn't be talking about him. So the second question which comes is whether Gandhi is possible. A lot of people say Gandhi is possible because a man called Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi became Gandhi, which we know. So he made it possible. And the third word which comes in is what Gopal Gandhi uses for Mahatma Ji is inconvenient. So whether Bapu Mahatma Gandhi is inconvenient for us. So for that, the answer itself comes, which Gandhi we are talking about. Because Gandhi can be talked as a journalist, as a lawyer, as a social activist, as a politician, as a freedom fighter. But the problem is that once we start looking at a person like Mahatma Gandhi, most people, and which is natural also, because obviously people have limitations of the way they think and their interest also. So the 3 or 4 types of people, one who will choose his politics. The other may go up to bashing Gandhi, which is a sort of fashion these days. Of course, most of them people who bash Gandhi haven't read a word about him beyond the WhatsApp university. So, and the other big group, which is deifying Gandhi, making him into a god. I think all these ways of looking at Gandhi are slightly fallacious, because we miss out a very important thing. So if you ask me what is the relevance of Bapu in our times, see his politics and his social activism, the context of it may have changed. Obviously, those things cannot be done now. A lot of things have changed. Obviously, there are deeper messages to it, but we will miss out if we ignore what the man was. We often tend to ignore Gandhi as a man who had all the rasas. Pratibha ji, you should know this. He was a man of rasa. He was a man who was alive. He was a man who had his fallacies. He was a man of extreme rage, a man of extreme lust. We know all this. How do we tend to ignore it? I mean, with our gods, we suddenly call them Leela. Gandhi is our history right now. Maybe 400 years later, people will call all this Leela, but right now it's not Leela. So we should, before he becomes a Leela May Purush, we should learn from him. We should not let him go. So why is he so important? People have made a dry, wry philosopher out of him. He was not even a philosopher. I mean, he didn't write a tome of philosophy. But when people talk of Gandhi, the young people don't get interested in him because they suddenly see it. What was he? He was just telling, do this, don't eat, don't do this, then sacrifice and all. It doesn't sink in. So, and it was a problem. When I started doing my workshops, this was a problem. But then I had to take them through the journey. So during these workshops, what I realized that what has to be told to young people and to everybody, that Gandhi was not different from us. Gandhi was not a god. His brain was like our brain. The only difference which he had, that he became aware. He became conscious. And that too very early in life. And from that, he trained himself over 50 years. So the Gandhi we know is a Gandhi beyond his 50 years of age. Till that time, he was experimenting and experimenting and experimenting. So when Gandhi could experiment, and the good thing was, these experiments and this conscious transformation, which he was continually doing with himself, 24/7, are nothing platonic. They have not been delivered to him from some heavens. It was his human mind. He was learning all the time. So when we tell people, you say, don't become like Gandhi, at least you become like yourself and use the process which he used. So what Shobhanaji said, then what was his process? His process was, my life is my message. So what is important? What we understand is important. What we know is important, or what we do is important. So Mahatma Gandhi chose the third one. What I do is important. And he said, although he didn't want to leave a lot of this writing, but anyway, there are 100 volumes now and millions of books and all. He said, you watch my life. So his life is worth watching. Because I think if we do not bring that into our lives, whatever theoretical stuff we keep talking about, we will not be able to change. So what are the problems? So why is he important? He is important not because of, maybe, I mean, all those things are important, like honesty and sacrifice. And you talk Gandhi's name and people will start talking about this word. And then you take them a level deep and ask them, what do you mean by them? So abhi nobody teaches kids these things. And sometimes I ask Gandhi bashers also that are these bad things? Honesty, sacrifice, are they bad things? They said no. I said, if this is no, the man who epitomized it, why are you calling him bad and this and that? They mistakenly take politics for the man. We fail to understand that the politics is a time-bound thing. It is contextual. It will come and go. But the process remains. So Gandhi becomes very important for today's world. And if today's world is not realizing, slowly they will realize that what was Gandhi doing actually? What was he doing? Right from the day he was thrown out of the train in St. Peter, Maritzburg, at that day he had a choice. The choice was to run away, to suffer insult, or to fight. So he chose fighting. But he also chose that it is not about me. It is about a lot of people who are suffering insults. The second step was that these people are so scattered that they will never come together and never gain respect. The second aspect was uniting them. And the third was, of course, what became his creed, and that was non-violence. Once he had decided these three things, you see all over, a lot of people say Gandhi's ahimsa was a theoretical thing and he had never suffered. But they forget that in South Africa itself, at least 5-10 times at least 5 times we know, he was badly beaten up and he would have died. So if we have to describe Gandhi by one incident, I will tell only one incident. There was this colleague of his, a lot of us know this story, Mir Alam. Mir Alam had some tiff with Gandhi over that, the way of proceeding and on the registration card and all. So Mir Alam had actually assaulted Gandhi. Gandhi was not the man who would go and complain. So the first thing he did, he gets out Mir Alam. Mir Alam comes and apologizes, and see what is this man saying. He was a rich barrister at that time in South Africa, right? Gandhi says, when you were beating me, my problem was not that I would die or get hurt. I was struggling with an internal thought. And the internal thought was that I should not hate you at that very moment. So all forgiveness post hoc is very easy. That somebody had beaten me up and tomorrow morning I will forgive. That is possible. Maybe it was of helplessness also. But at that time when you are being hit, you should not hate the enemy. And in South Africa, it used to happen. So what was he doing? He was actually trying to get over that biggest fear, the biggest fear of death. And this is almost to the level of Buddha. Because there are two incidents. When he walks up to people who had promised that they will kill Gandhi and he says, I'm here, kill me. Once he was off that, it took him some years, couple of decades. And then he was sure about non-violence. The second step which he took for non-violence, which is very important to us in today's world, was enhancing his empathy. We all have empathy. We all have mirror neurons in our heads by which we can, if you are sad, I'll know that you are sad. I'll also become sad. If I shake my hand, your areas of brain which shake this hand will also get activated. But to take your empathy to a point where you include the whole world, I think his deepest practice was feeling one with the people, and not only with the one who was in front of him, with everybody, especially when he came back to India. Everybody felt Gandhi was his own. He goes to Peshawar, to those violent Pathans, they drop their guns. He goes to Tamil Nadu, they feel Gandhi is ours. Bengali feel he's ours. Oh, what was it? See, in our lives, even to have 20 people following you and just totally empathizing is so difficult. Your own family might not do it. But to have this much, I think what the trick he had caught, and I'm saying it a trick, because he was a very aware man. Nothing in Gandhi's life was unconscious after a certain point of time. Maybe barring his fights with Kasturba, over which he overcame that also. And obviously he said Kasturba is my greatest teacher. The lessons were going on at home only. But the way this man channelized everything. If we are one, if you and me are one, if you do a mistake, I can also do a mistake. And if I can do a mistake, why should I get angry with you? Because then it will be like getting angry with myself. I can't turn violent to myself. Some people do, but largely wouldn't. Now, once you have that level of understanding, so Gandhi, probably with this cognitive framework, he stopped rejecting people. He knew the difference between absolute truth and relative truth. He would not reject people. People could do heinous crimes and go to Gandhi. So what was it? It was like, okay, don't do it again. Get back to work. It's a fait accompli. Let's not bother about it too much. Let's get to work. So he was moving like this. And once he got hold of one of the processes, then he moved on to another. But the biggest thing, let me tell you as a neuroscientist, our brain, conscious brain as we understand, is very little. It's largely the unconscious tsunami which is throwing things. And when what we want, we put things at stake, things don't happen, the rage comes up. And that rage is hardly lasting for half a minute, 500 milliseconds or something like that. In that 500 milliseconds, to pose a conscious thought of non-violence against this rising tsunami of rage, right? You keep training your mind like this, and slowly your unconscious turns into sort of non-violent. I mean, it has been best described by Saadat Hasan Manto actually. He wrote a story and he says that somebody says something और महात्मा जी के दिमाग का 1/1000वां हिस्सा भी नहीं हिला. When people ask me, how did you do it? And they don't believe this. I say Gandhiji would also be getting angry. He was a man of huge anger, we know this. Gandhiji has reduced the spike. If we get angry, we go on like this for days, for hours, and do all. And especially with this WhatsApp, we'll tell 2,000 people that something has happened. His spike was like this. So that was Buddha's spike. Like, make it small. So it does, nobody outside knows what is happening. That 24/7 practice. The second thing, what was important, and why I say he was a master of empathy. Look at his public movements. Chori Chora he takes back because of violence. Right? He waits for 10 years for the next movement, which is Salt movement. Why Salt movement? It was all non-violent. We know there's a record of it. I mean, it's no fantasy, it's a record. कोई हिंसा नहीं हुई. अगला मूवमेंट 10 साल बाद आता है, क्विट इंडिया. थोड़ी हिंसा हुई, but by that time गांधी जी को लोग, people had started putting him on the side, 42 to 47. But when does his finest movement come? Gandhi's finest movements were post 1942, post 45, 46, 47, 48, when country is put into the flames of violence. And this man almost rises like a phoenix, like a Christ, and says that when I have trained the whole country in non-violence, what is wrong? He gets back to what he is best at. He goes to Noakhali. He goes back to his experiments of empathy and love and all that. He said, you want to put nails, splinters, do whatever you want, I'll work on it. That is his finest moment. And he again epitomizes that. He again, with his presence, he forces Mountbatten to say that this is a one-man boundary force against the 55,000 soldiers. I mean, these things nobody can fake, you have to be very real to do this. So how does he become important? He becomes important because we are living in a world which is a resource-crunched world. Either we perish together or we live together. We all have to learn to step out of ourselves and hold the hand of other person, or at least leave some part of us, of ourself, to absorb that the other person. So what Shobhanaji said, this is what Gandhi was doing. He removed everything which can cause division and barrier between people. Brahmachar, dispossession, everything, you look at his life, he was dropping everything which can create a wall between people. That is perfectly doable thing. All of us, if we decide, we may not go up to Gandhi himself could not reach Gandhism. You know this. Mahatma Gandhi was an ideal. Mohandas Gandhi could not reach that. And he used to say this, you don't reach an ideal because otherwise it will all be dead. But if he was at 98 from 0 to 100 scale, we may be at minus 20. So start moving towards 100. Even if you do plus 10, plus 20, so step out of yourself. Otherwise, if it doesn't happen, because the gaps in this world are increasing now. Though the apparent violence is decreasing, but the gaps and the violence between people within your own head, with people, that all is increasing. And that will cause havoc with human mind. Especially in the world where AI is coming and would snatch jobs and all, who will guarantee who gets an equitable share of life? So people will have to turn back to Gandhi. Why Gandhi is practicable? Because he did not go to a mountain to give sermons. He was there in the thick and filth of politics. And he was trying to practice all this here. What Gandhi did is perfectly doable. There is a model of it. There is a science of it. What it requires is a decision to get out of yourself, to consider the other human being as valid as you are. We have to consider people that if I am a human being, the other person is also a human being. This was the mastery of the man. He may disagree, he may do a lot of things, but so I think if you ask me in one sentence, what is the relevance of Bapu in our times? He teaches us how to live in that human ethics, where every human being has the autonomy, a freedom to exist like other human beings. And this is what should be taught, if not to adults, at least to children. So that next 20 years, we'll have more people. And I mean, there's nothing mysterious about it. There's no hidden variable in it. It's all there. It's all there. And I think that is what people are trying all over the world, because emphasis on empathy is so much in US and all. Maybe we'll learn slowly, but we will. So I think that's what we should aim at. And I'll end my talk. Thank you, Pratibha ji. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sudarshan ji, for listening. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Alok, so much. It was really enlightening, I should say. And thanks for sharing a very important point that how he was also just a common mortal, but he chose a very tough path and walked on it without getting deterred. And of course, not only did he live for himself, he lived for others, but also he took others along and he brought out in them a purpose to live for. So, and that's where his compassion shone the brightest the entire world. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you very much. So with that, we move on to our next esteemed speaker, that is Dr. Sudarshan Iyengar. A little bit about Dr. Iyengar. Dr. Sudarshan Iyengar is a PhD in economics and is the former Vice Chancellor of Gujarat Vidyapeeth, Ahmedabad, founded by Mahatma Gandhi. He has worked with various ICSSR recognized socioeconomic research institutions in Ahmedabad and Surat. He was also the chair professor Gandhian philosophy at IIT Mumbai. He is presently living and working at Action Research in Community Health and Development at Dharampur, Gujarat. So welcome once again, Dr. Iyengar, and we would like to hear your speech. Over to you. Dr. Iyengar, if you could unmute yourself, please. Yes, thank you so much.
Namaskar. Alok ji started with Hindi word, and I had asked Pratibha Ben whether I can speak in Hindi. She said, "Nahi, pure Bharat ke log hain." So I said, "All right, let's do it." But this is like Gandhi's position in 1916 when he was addressing the foundation ceremony at the Banaras Hindu University, and he said that I have to speak in English. That's really unfortunate for me. Anyhow, I am not belittling this globalized world or global village where language should not be a barrier. Nevertheless, words come from culture. So in order to understand, and when we are talking about Bapu in our times, two excellent expressions have come. Shobna Didi laying down, the basic tenets and Gandhi's basic contributions, and Alok ji telling us, which Gandhi said to all, if it is possible for one, it is possible for all. If it is possible for me, it's also possible for a child. And in this range, what is Bapu in our times? And I would go by what Alok ji said, the third expression of Gopal Krishna Gandhi, why Gandhi is inconvenient to us, especially to the younger people. Largely he is inconvenient because even at the age of 60, 58, 59, when he writes his autobiography and ends it, then he says that this seeker of truth, seeker of absolute truth, whom I call that truth is God, from saying that God is truth. He says that my own assessment, the yardstick, the gauge that I use, with that kind of yardstick, if as I think everybody should measure oneself, and what is the measure, what is the expression he has? It's a Surdas expression. Mosam kon kutil kal khami, jinatanu diyo tahi bisrayo aso nimak harami. Now, this is the state of affairs. And who is doing this? This is by Mohan. And let us remember Mohandas and then Mahatma. Whether this Mohan also does the Leela in his own times, and we are going to say that it is going to be all Mohan's Leela after 300 years, it's a different matter, but it is from Mohandas and Mahatma. So it is here that the Mohan understands from the very beginning. And then he becomes, of course, he becomes Bapu. And I think Bapu is a very, very lovely word to use. Because Bapu, the word itself, and therefore I said that it reflects culture. We tell Bapu whom we love. It's not only father. Bapu means, Are Bapu is mine. He is mine to all, not to one. So becoming that Bapu itself is an exercise which he performs, understanding Kabir, and as Alokji said, not going into a gufa in Himalaya, but in this world, this laukik, in this kind of maya, he stays and does that by understanding. Kabir, mala ferat jug bhaya, firana man ka fer, karaka manka darike manka fer. Now here is Mohan who has understood that you have to do the manka. I'll tell you, I will not be able to translate this. My English is not so good. Let our Indian people understand the nuance of it. And the nuance of this is Bapu in our times. We are really shouting at rooftop that youth has the aspirations and we should not stop the youth of the aspirations of youth. What is this aspiration? This aspiration is for achieving. Achieving what? Achieving and then achieving two things. One, freedom. Which freedom? Licentiated freedom. I have freedom to choose my own poison. It's my life. Geet chal raha hai bhai. It's my life. Who are you to interfere? I will kill myself. I'll take drugs. I'll do anything. That's my freedom. Don't come in. I'll buy anything. I can do anything. I can eat anything. I can drink anything. And here is where Mohan said that, listen, I tried this. And it appears that it is no good. Because again, he says, I am not saying something new. Again, Kabir has said before me, Godana, Gajdana, Gajidana or Ratandana Khan, Jabave, Santosh, Jaba, Jave, Santosh, Dhan, Sabdana, Dhuri Saman. This has been there for our centuries. Buddha has said this, Kabir has repeated this, and Mohan comes again in 20th century, 19th century and reminds us of the same. Yet we are saying that we want this, and in order to achieve this, for this licentious freedom and unlimited material wealth, I have invented my enemies. And those enemies, I don't look inside. I look for these enemies outside. मुसलमान गलत हैं, अनुसूचित जाति वाले गलत हैं, ये करेंगे, ये नीच लोग करेंगे, दुनिया हमारे चीन के सामने हम लोग लड़ाई करेंगे, सब हमने we have created fictitious Frankensteins ourselves, but we have never looked inside us. We have not looked at manka, we are in still karka manka. That is the point which is more important, which has come out from the earlier two speeches as well. And again, is it a new problem? No, it's not a new problem. काकर पाथर जोड़ के मंदिर दियो मस्जिद दियो चिनाए, काकर पाथर जोड़ के मस्जिद दियो चिनाए, ता चढ़ी मुल्ला बांग दे क्या बहरो हुओ खुदाए. Kabir is telling us in those days. So Hindu-Muslim problem is not present one. It has been there. पाहन पूजे हरि मिले तो मैं पूजूं पहाड़, याते ये चाकी भली पी सिखाए संसार. He is telling both. What a courage. And Mohan has the courage. And therefore he is the one-man army sitting working in Bengal and getting Mountbatten's tribute that he is equivalent to one-man boundary force against 55,000 people, as Alok Bhai said. This is a person who has achieved or has tried to achieve his Swaraj. 75th year of celebrating Indian Swaraj is still pending. The day it was pending on 15th August 1947, when Gandhi said that this is not the Swaraj I am pining for. My Swaraj still has to come. And unless the Swaraj, the self-regulation, self-control, Sanyam comes in, my freedom, my autonomy, I need autonomy. Each one needs autonomy because each jiva is equal in our culture. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva anupashyati sarvabhuteshu cha atmanam tato na vijugupsate. How can I hate anybody if I can see all the bhutas in me and I see myself in all the bhutas? What a fundamental understanding in Ishopanishad's 6th verse. What more we require? From where more we want to learn about? This kind of oneness of the jiva, oneness of the being, of the chetana. Now it is this that Mohan had understood and was struggling to practice. That practice is practicing for Swaraj. And what Shobha Didi mentioned, that the third contribution of individual Swaraj after the Satyagraha and the Rachanatmak Karya is the most important and the most neglected. It is the most neglected contribution of, the most important contribution of the Gandhi, which we have neglected because it is inconvenient. Because I want to make money very fast. Because I want to get a package. I am not happy. I am not happy with whatever I am given. I feel that I deserve more. You deserve more for what? In acquiring, not giving up. And then you have to have a law in this country. I'm ashamed to say this. As a citizen of this Bharat, Gauravmay Bharat, Jagat Guru Bharat, Vishwa Guru Bharat, I am ashamed, I must tell you, that we have to bring in a law like corporate social responsibility, which has a traditions of Mahajan, where a person, in no other country, the concept of trusteeship could have been born in any mind than in India, particularly in Gujarat, where there were Mahajans. Gandhi वहां से सीख रहा है भाई. मैं युवा लोगों को, I want to tell this to my youth. ये aspiration है. This is the aspiration. I don't want government to tell me कि 5% of profit, and in the way you earn profit, there is no question of means. You can destroy everything, but earn profit. Because profit is not a dirty word. That's what the Protestant ethics told us in the world. And therefore earn profit. Means don't matter. And matters. And then of course, when you have so many things, you also should care for your own dana punya. So you do dana punya. And that dana punya also is limited to 2% of your profit. Do we require CSR? If there is no individual, felt individual responsibility, then we require state-sponsored corporate social responsibility. Mohan tells us that by building his own character and the way he did it, what can be done? Now, this is our crisis. Today's crisis, I think not only in India, but humanity's crisis. Why I am calling humanity? Because this is a species which thinks, the species which grows, the species which has evolved. This species has crisis of character. Now, character is something which brings harmony. Without this intense effort to make an intense effort at an individual level to build your character, you cannot achieve harmony. We require harmony at three places: Vyakti, Samashti, and Prakriti. My own internal harmony, and Alok Bhai has just said, I have no authority on it. He is just warning us that, listen, the manifest violence may be controlled by the, what they call as forces. Everywhere you apply forces. If everybody has the atomic, powers, nobody will fight because they are afraid. That is then the manifest violence doesn't happen. But the structural violence comes in social behavior, in economic behavior, in centralization of the power, of the political power and the corporate power, which only unleashes exploitation. And this is because your inner peace is not there. You are ambitious, you have aspirations, and you want to play on the youth's aspirations in this country to say that we will take you to those heights. Which heights? The American heights. Is that the standard which we want? Are we not serious enough to ask this question? When we ask this question, Gandhi is inconvenient. And that is where the conflicts are. It is the conflict over resources. Why am I fighting with, why am I naming names in the name of religion or caste? Because I want to corner the resources with the power that I have, my identity. That is the crisis. The moment you give up your identity, you will have problems. So the samashti, or conflict within us, disharmony within us, is because I am not striving for my individual Swaraj, my inner harmony, which comes from making my character strong. Unfortunately, it is not on the agenda of education, new education policy 2020 notwithstanding. And when this doesn't happen, when individual is sort of limitlessly thirsty for material resources, when societies fight over these resources on geopolitical grounds, you are destroying naturally the natural physical resources which are limited, which cannot satiate your unlimited wants for unlimited time. Therefore, you have total disharmony. And here is Mohan, who came from his childhood, built his character for the quest of truth, truth in speech, truth in work, truth in behavior, and truth in living. And therefore, the walking the way of the truth is through ahimsa. And this ahimsa is something which he called as love force. And this love force is his message. And when I build this love force within me, then I become Kabira Nirmal ho jana, Tajkar man guman. This Nirmalta has to come in all of us. And when this happens, when I start becoming Nirmal in this sense, my own material aspirations are going to shrink. My own demands and needs are going to shrink. Sudarshan wore Paragon 100 rupees slippers now for 35 years. I have not worn a shoe. My dear young people, if you are listening, nobody has stopped me or bothered me with it. ये बूट भी नहीं पहनता है. I am fine. I am comfortable. मैंने पाउडर नहीं लगाया भाई, कभी छोड़ दिया. बचपन में लगाता था. मद्रासी लोग हैं ना, हमको लगता था कि काले लोग हैं, पाउडर लगाएंगे तो गोरे हो जाएंगे. हुए तो नहीं, तो पाउडर छोड़ दिया हमने. So please understand this. So when you reduce your requirements, your own draw on others your own conflict with others comes down. And when you become nirmal, then yastu sarvani bhutani, you can realize that I can't hate anybody. So I still, make my character strong with love force. And this is Tulsi Dayana Chandiye Jab Lagi Ghat Mein Pran. Tulsi comes in here. दया धर्म का मूल है, देह मूल अभिमान. Tulsi Dayana Chandiye Jab Lagi Ghat Mein Pran. Gandhi wants to do this in 17th chapter of his Hind Swaraj. He's coming up with this, and that's the point. And when you do this, you solve the problem of ecology. I think Vinita ji started by saying that Bapu in our times has to be remembered for ecology, for conflicts, for individual. So Vyakti, Samashti, and Prakriti, the harmony, the Samvadita, the harmony can be achieved by focusing on individual, Swa, and therefore Swaraj, and therefore 11 vows, and therefore we should all try to communicate this to the young people if they are listening, that listen, this is the key to real freedom. गांधी मुक्त हुआ, वो मुक्ति के मार्ग पे था. भले 98% पे था लोग भाई, 98% is good enough. For us, even 25% is good enough, and I am with you. And we must keep walking on the path. So for the Vyakti Samashti and Prakriti harmony, this is how Bapu is fine with us. And if you don't want this, then he is inconvenient. Otherwise, he is very easy, as easy for a child, even for us. Thank you very much, Pratibha Ben. This has been a wonderful session to listen to all very nice people telling things very nicely about Bapu. So Bapu in our times, still Bapu in every time. Bapu is forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Iyengar, for your speech. It further clarifies what is the real meaning of Bapu in our times. And really, the aim of our life should be attaining individual harmony at the first level, and then more importantly, actually building on our character. And that is the real role of education in our society and the purpose of our life. With that, I would like to deeply thank you once again for sharing such important thoughts with us. Thank you very much. With that, we move on to our next esteemed speaker, Dr. Sachidanand Joshi ji. Dr. Joshi is currently the Member Secretary in the Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts, that is IGNCA, one of the premier institutions under the Ministry of Culture. Earlier, he worked as founder Vice Chancellor in the Khushbau Thakare University of Journalism and Mass Communication, Raipur, and as the founder registrar in the Makhan Lal Chaturvedi National University of Journalism and Communication in Bhopal. Dr. Joshi has worked in prestigious institutions like the Indian Institute of Forest Management, Nehru Yuva Sangathan, MP Vikas Pradhikaran Sangh, and in different executive capacities. He is actively involved in cultural activities, especially theatre, and has directed and written plays. He has been awarded at the state and national level for Hindi and Marathi plays. So over to you, Dr. Joshi.
Namaskar. It is really heartening to note that the Prasiddha Foundation is organizing a very important colloquium on a very relevant topic, Bapu in Our Times. And I am extremely delighted to share the panel with eminent Gandhian philosophers and thinkers like Dr. Sudarshan Iyengar, like Shri Rajiv Vora ji, like Dr. Alok Bajpai ji, like Dr. Shobhana Radhakrishnan ji. I am nobody in front of them. In fact, I am not at all a Gandhian scholar or a philosopher. I am only a student of communication and would try to reflect on the subject with my own limited vision and perspective. But before that, I must congratulate the cultural visionary eminent dancer Pratibha Praladji for organizing this colloquium on a very important topic. When we think of Bapu, when we think of Mahatma Gandhi, three words immediately come to our mind. And those three words are very important: peace, truth, and non-violence. And in today's scenario, these three words have become immensely important for the survival of the mankind. For the last 1.5 years, the entire world has gone through an agony. The pandemic that is known as the coronavirus pandemic. And there is a serious threat to the survival of the humanity. And things which can only take us through this testing time are only our faith in coexistence, mutual coexistence, harmonious relationship, and non-violent attitude. Just look at the history for past few years. In the name of development, in the name of growth, in the name of prosperity, what have we done to this world? It's really amazing and surprising how fast we have gone, recklessly we have gone, and forgotten the basic principles of the survival of this humanity. The lessons which Mahatma Gandhi taught us, the lessons which Gautam Buddha taught us, we forgot those lessons, and we recklessly went on the path which was supposedly to be known as development, but eventually resulted into disaster. So to come out of this agony, to come out of this pain, to come out of this tragedy, we need to have our reassurance in the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. And when he said this, you see how beautifully he had taught us the lesson of survival with prosperity, survival with harmony, survival with peace. Mahatma Gandhi said that this world has enough to satisfy everybody's need, but it does not have enough to satisfy anybody's greed. And we have become more and more greedy. We became more and more demanding. We became more and more power hungry. We became more and more materialistic and forget the path which was showed to us by Mahatma Gandhi. So we need to again try to recollect what Mahatma Gandhi taught to us. I often recollect his sayings in Hind Swaraj. That was written way back in 1910, and just see what he has written in Hind Swaraj about the railways, about the profession of medical, about the profession of law, about the rapid development, about the urbanization. People thought that Mahatma Gandhi has written something which is not acceptable, which cannot be true in the practical terms. But even after writing Hindu Swaraj, after a couple of years, when he was asked, would you like to change your thoughts on what you have written on Hindu Swaraj? He said, no, I'll not change. And you see, today we realize that whatever he has written is coming true. When he wrote about railways, it was not against the active mode of transportation. But if you philosophically analyze his statement, you would realize he was trying to draw our attention towards the transfer of population, towards the rapid urbanization. If you see the changing demography in last couple of years, you would realize earlier India was known to be the country of villages. More than 80% of Indian people used to live in villages. In last 20 years, it has gone down to 60%. In 20 years, we have reduced the village population to 20%. And that's a huge demographical change. We must realize that if we go with this speed, if we go with this pace, we are going to destroy all our villages very soon. And if the villages are destroyed, our entire culture is destroyed, our social structure is destroyed, our social philosophy would destroy, and in fact, our entire economy would be affected badly. We must also realize that when he wrote about the medical profession, he was pointing out towards the rapid growth in the professionalism. Professionalism without moral and ethical values does not make any sense. And you see how we have gone in this area of making more and more professionals without moral and ethical values, and how it has damaged the entire working culture of the country. So whatever Mahatma Gandhi wrote in Hind Swaraj is becoming true. I think in past 1.5 years, people have realized that whatever he wrote in Hind Swaraj eventually was almost correct. And those philosophical things, those things which he really wanted to sort of practice in most of the Indian villages, should have been done immediately. But we did not give any attention to them at that time. And we are paying heavy price for all that. So we must realize that the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, may it be related to Sarvodaya, may it be related to Swaraj, may it be related to Swadeshi, they all had practical as well as philosophical values. Even they had great spiritual values attached to Indian culture and ethos. Without understanding that Indian culture and ethos, if we try to sort of practice them and adopt them, it would be a futile effort. In totality, Mahatma Gandhi was giving a shape to an Indian society, an Indian culture, Indian polity, which would have gone a long way to lead the entire world. Not with might, but with peace and harmony. And that was the way Mahatma Gandhi tried to taught the entire world. And not only in India, the entire world realized that the path of Mahatma Gandhi has been teaching the entire world in the same way. Even after Mahatma Gandhi, the world could see great global leaders following the path of Mahatma Gandhi. May it be Martin Luther King, may it be Nelson Mandela, may it be Bishop Desmond Tutu, may it be His Holiness Dalai Lama, may it be Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, may it be San Suu Kyi. All of them tried to follow the path of Mahatma Gandhi. In fact, Barack Obama also, the former US president, was highly inspired by the ideas and philosophies of Mahatma Gandhi. Why? Because they were philosophical as well as very practical. When we talk about sustainable development, the entire idea of Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy always taught us how to be sustainable and how to be developed at the same time. His Holiness Dalai Lama said, "We have big war going on today between world peace and world war, between the force of mind and force of materialism, between democracy and materialism. To fight these wars, the common ordinary people in this modern age need Gandhi." Deshike Ikeda said once, "His activism is not mere action, but contains many aspects of spiritual practice that is inspired by the inner urging of the conscience." So we can realize how these great leaders, great philosophical and spiritual leaders have reflected on Mahatma Gandhi, followed the path of Mahatma Gandhi. Even the former US President Barack Obama once said, that in my life, I have always looked to Mahatma Gandhi as an inspiration because he embodies the kind of transformational change that can be made when ordinary people come together to do extraordinary things. This century belongs to common people because of the rapid growth of information, because of the rapid growth in the mode of transportation, because of the rapid growth in the modes of communication. Now we see the entire world belongs to common man. A couple of years back, I read the book known as The End of Power. In that book also I could find that how it has been described that the concept of power is diminishing day by day because of the rapid growth of transportation, the rapid growth in the modes of information, the rapid growth in the modes of communication. Moses Naim wrote this book in 2013, and today we realize that the concept of power is changing. Today there are no superpowers. Today there are no superstructures. Today there is the power of a common man. And that is why we see ordinary people doing extraordinary things with remarkable effort and remarkable dedication. So in today's scenario, we badly need the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi to be realized, because when the power comes to the common man, it needs self-discipline. It needs the idea of social justice. It needs the idea of sustainable growth. It needs the idea of solidarity, and it needs the idea of service to the mankind flourished with proper ethos and perception. And that can only be achieved through the teachings, through the directives, through the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. And that is why I say that Mahatma Gandhi has become more relevant than ever today. BAPU in our time is the most relevant thing happening to the world. We have to go back to the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. Today, if we see many of the schemes being run by the government of India, we can see a sense of Mahatma Gandhi. We can see the driving force behind this is the teaching of Mahatma Gandhi. May it be the call for Atmanirbhar Bharat, the self-reliant India. May it be the call for Swachh Bharat, clean India. May it be the call of Swasth Bharat. May it be the call of Samriddh Bharat. May it be the call of Skill India. May it be the call of Make in India. All these things are being driven with the philosophy and ideals of Mahatma Gandhi. So if we have to come forward in this world, if we have to really go ahead in this world, we need to be following the path of Mahatma Gandhi. And when we follow the path of Mahatma Gandhi, we definitely would reach to a place where we can make this world more happier, more harmonious, more healthier, more prosperous. In 2015, the United Nations declared the Sustainable Development Goals to be achieved in 2030. And if we have a look at these 17 goals, and if we sort of try to put them over the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, we would realize that if the entire world wants to achieve these goals, even these goals can only be achieved through the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. May it be no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life and land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and partnerships for the goals. These are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And I think people on the panel and people who are listening to this colloquium are, are, are competent enough to understand how all these goals can be achieved through the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. So there is a need to once again introspect within ourselves and try to find out how the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi can be in a most befitting manner be adopted to achieve all these goals, to make this entire world healthier, happier, and prosperous. I think today's colloquium would definitely lead us to think in this direction. I once again congratulate Pratibha Prahlad for organizing such a beautiful colloquium, and I also would like to congratulate all my esteemed panelists for sharing their views on this very important and relevant topic. Finally, I would also like to add that only merely putting Mahatma Gandhi in different monuments and memorabilia is not going to help. Gandhi lives within ourselves. We need to find out how well we can define the Gandhi which is residing in ourselves. Gandhi lives in each and every citizen of India. We need to find out, we need to encourage that Gandhi comes out in action as soon as possible. Thank you. I must thank for the organizers for giving me an opportunity to express my thoughts in this colloquium. Namaskar.
From all your talk, what the thing that I got, out of it most was that Gandhiji was first and foremost a wonderful human being. By wonderful human being, I don't mean one without flaws. All of us are flawed. All of us are fallible. But to be able to recognize one's flaws and to be able to work on them and to try and make oneself better is all that we can do, because that's all the ability that we have in this world. And so we all of us try in our very little ways to become better human beings, better than what we were yesterday, maybe today, maybe I try and do, like when Alokji was talking, he spoke about Gandhi's anger. Many a time, I just want to share this little thing with you, that I read a book and it said, the spiritual guru speaks about how he got angry, with somebody once, and then God told him that he had to be reborn on this earth several times over to be able to overcome his anger. And when I met this person, the spiritual guru, the first thing I asked him was, I said, I get angry 100 times every day. You mean I got to take that many births to, to fulfill my whatever, to reach moksha? Because I don't want to come back again. So he was, splitting with laughter when I asked him that. But yeah, the thing is that do you live with that anger? Do you overcome that anger? Do you give up on that anger? Do you give up on, whatever it is that, that you have in your mind, and move forward and try to connect people and make those connections. And like I said, this pandemic time has, given us that opportunity to reconnect with people and understand people. And that to me is really, really important. And I'm supremely grateful to all of you, supremely grateful that, with just one phone call, you accepted and, to come on this panel and to speak your minds, your hearts, so eloquently, so beautifully. I mean, like I said, it's been one of the most interesting sessions that I've attended this whole year. And I'm truly grateful to each and every one of you. I did a production called Walking with the Mahatma. Dr. Iyengar kept using the word walking. I used the word walking with the Mahatma. I used that title because for me, the image of Gandhi is one, of walking. As a dancer, I connect to images. And I said, okay, so it is that movement image of Gandhiji, who's forever in motion, walking. And walking with the Mahatma in a figurative sense is to be able to live his ideals step by step, step by step. Can we reach there? I mean, can we re-examine it? Do we think it's pertinent for us? Is this pertinent? Is it doable in our situation? So walking with the Mahatma step by step on his path of his ideology, of his idealism, and his way of life to just become a better human being, step by step. I don't know whether we'll ever be able to reach there, but and I had 5 scenes in this, and in fact, I was talking about this a little earlier before this session. We had a choreographer session to talk about the challenges of translating Gandhiji's thoughts onto stage. And I was, telling them that I was frightened. It scared me because it was out of my comfort zone. To deal with mythology, epics was what classical dancers, are trained for. So our body memories and our memory of the mind, when it starts creating something, immediately goes towards the classical. It's easy to show Rama or Sita or Lakshmana or Krishna, but the moment you get out of that comfort zone and you want to show Gandhi, a bent body, because you keep saying dancers have to have a spine straight, and you have a slightly bent body, and there's no adoration of the body, like Dr. Sudarshanji said. No powder, no makeup, no jewelry. Take everything off. Just take all your abharan off, all your abharan. Go. As simple as possible on stage. That itself was frightening. As costuming, as aharya goes, it was frightening. As idealism goes, it was frightening to go on stage and to attempt to translate Gandhiji's thoughts and his perceptions on stage. In terms of a performance, I'm talking about. It was difficult. It's easier to talk about it, but when you try to perform it, you have to have music, you have to have accompanists, you have to have a body memory, a cultural memory, and those were there were many areas where there were huge gaps, and one had to rework on those gaps. We will be showing this performance, this production called Walking with the Mahatma, after we webcast this talk tomorrow. And if you are able to join, I'm going to send you all a link, and if you are able to join, and if you can please watch the performance, even a little bit of it, I'll be most grateful, because I'd love to hear your critique, let's say, your informed critique about what it was and what it can be, in case I need to better it, in any which way that I have to. Having said this, Shobana ji, I'm so privileged to hear you today. I'm so privileged. I was, I was just in a different world when you were talking about Gandhiji. For me, my mind went back to a different time, and I kept, all those images kept coming in my thought. And I'm so privileged that you agreed to speak. Thank you so much. Alok ji, it was lovely reconnecting with you. You like you said, we met long time ago, but God has made this connection. It's like a reconnection, and I'm so happy, and I hope we'll remain connected.
Absolutely.
So you have my numbers, and thank you so much. And Sudarshan, I really loved your talk too, and really loved what you said. It was so from the heart and so simple and so eloquent, really. Thank you so much. And I really do hope that we will meet again soon in person, and that we'll keep in touch. Thank you so much. Vinita, thank you so much for anchoring the whole show and taking us through all of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pratibha ji, and all the eminent speakers for this initiative coming on board. And I deeply want to thank each one of you from the bottom of my heart, and especially Prasiddha Foundation for taking this initiative on really trying to understand that what is the meaning of BAPU in our times. And each one of the speakers who have so beautifully explained this in their own unique manner and shared their thoughts. And of course, my takeaway has been that it is not materialism which is important, but it is minimalism which is important. And most importantly, to live a life with a purpose and building on our own character and leading today's youth and children, for a better world and better tomorrow. So thank you so very much for joining us on this platform and sharing your thoughts with us today.